Democrat and he smears that they want it, and how they're going to treat Hillary versus how they're going to treat us, and it doesn't even. I'm not even going to. Well, I am going to bother saying it, but you all know this. It's going to be light years apart. Right. So with Rage Against the Media, we're starting to ramp up to hold the media accountable. And would you ask this of a Democrat? And if you ask this of a Democrat, why aren't you? MSNBC has a tweet out. What do you think Hillary Clinton's favorite snack is? I'm not making this up.
It's little puppies.
Yeah. And, exactly. And that we need to spread that exact kind of nonsense around. Hillary Clinton loves,
little puppies.
Crunched, deep fried little puppies. And, right? Or because can you believe it? And they asked this. MSNBC, what are her favorite
things? I can believe they ask it. I can definitely believe they ask it because it's
right?
so
I know,
hard-hitting. It's hard-hitting news.
It's unbelievable. But would they ask that of Marco Rubio? Would they ask that of, Of course not. Marco Rubio,
Marco, do you like salsa on your crunchy little puppies?
Yeah.
Because he's Latino.
Right. Right. Yes. It wouldn't even ask. They'd say Marco Rubio likes salsa on his crunchy little puppy.
Oh, yes. They'd make it up, too. Only little Mexican kind of dogs, little chihuahuas.
Yeah, well, if they ever asked me what my favorite snack was, I'd say Chick-fil-A. That would set them all off.
There you go. Exactly.
Okay, hey, we got to cut away for a break here. It's time for Moments of Madness. So stay
awesome.
With us right here on the Conservative Syndicate. We'll be back with Karen Siegemund from Rage Against the Media and Joe Hakos from Dry Report. Don't go away. Today on Moments of Madness. With the recent signing into law of Indiana Senate Bill 101, legislatively known as the Senate Enrolled Act, National Journal writer Ronald Breinstein best summed up the left's latest desperate attempt to ensure Obama's third term by proxy in 2016. The objective behind his summation is the left's need to retain at least a pen and a phone in the White House that can continue to circumvent the separation of powers should they not recapture Congress through fundraising, vote pandering, redistricting, and fraud. Brownstein pens, with the Indiana religious freedom law, Pence detonated what could be the biggest landmine facing his party in 2016, the sense that the GOP wants to reverse the cultural and demographic changes relentlessly remaking America. Brownstein reiterates, as only a media parrot can, that once again right-wing extremist factions, otherwise known as Christian conservatives, have succeeded in deviously enlisting yet another tepid establishment Republican in their quest to reinitiate the days of the Inquisition in order to thwart our first half-white president's bid to finish fundamentally transforming the United States of America. Using a 22-year-old federal law initially written by Democrat Senator Chuck Schumer and signed into law by Bill Clinton that was later diluted by the Supreme Court ruling in 1997 as an overreach into state sovereignty, several states have passed their own versions of the Religious Freedom and Restoration Act, which decrees people have a civil right to refuse to participate in activities that go against their own religious beliefs. Indiana has been the latest of 22 states to do this. Utilizing the race card as a premise from which the civil rights movement has been redefined to include anything anyone can dream up as a right, the left has introduced the war on women, which demands the right to murder unborn children and receive free birth control, all on the taxpayer dime, and the war on economic injustice, in which the wealth disparity theme has been embraced under Obama's creative destruction agenda, also known as wealth redistribution or Keynesian economic, and expanded and repackaged as new and improved by proclaiming opportunity and entitlement means the same thing. This has not been enough to once and for all bring about the left's vision of a utopian collective. The war on Christianity is the left's last leg of its progressive platform. It is a campaign designed to further redefine and rewrite American heritage and history by assigning Christian influence in government as the primary reason we are a nation of greedy, oppressing haters rather than generous, compassionate liberators. Forcing private sector enterprises to not only tolerate but condone and accept silently the immoral onslaught orchestrated by the left and subjected upon society by the homosexual activist community, we are now seeing the signs of political genocide equivalent to the early days of the Holocaust in Germany. Businesses are being marked for protests and boycotted, while their owners and CEOs are being tried and politically ostracized in the mock court of public opinion by ideological vigilantes. There is much more to the DNC's dislike of Israel than just its appeasement of Islam or its sympathy towards Palestine. Traditional Christianity stands in the way as to how a remade America should look, and it needs to be either redefined or removed. Barack Obama himself hides behind a newly fabricated shield of pseudo-Christianity, one that equates wealth redistribution and immoral tolerance as the essential elements of the gospel proclaimed by a black Jesus, while the rest of the world proclaims rainbows or validation that God is gay. Well, let us not forget another man who used this same facade as a means to an end. Hitler touted himself a Christian in the early days of his campaign. He, too, later perverted his doctrine to fit his ideological belief Jews were a problem that needed a final solution. Such it is today in regard to Christianity. Christianity remains the last barrier to tyrannical rule. It is the last reminder of moral conscience. It is the last voice that can warn of pending destruction and exile into the wilderness of enslavement. In the minds of the godless, Christianity must be eradicated in the same way Judaism was in Germany. Unfortunately, the church, for whatever reason, has spent too much time huddled within its own walls, believing if it just leaves the godless alone, they will leave it alone. Well, that isn't going to happen. It is time Christians acknowledge this. It is time to proclaim our own jihad, our own holy war in the name of Christian injustice. After all, if God is really for us, who can stand against us? What weapon formed against us can prosper? Of course, this means picking up the most effective weapon we have and wielding it. That weapon is our vote. It is time. What God has put together, let no man tear asunder. This is John Matthews for Moments of Madness. Okay, hey, we're back right here on the Conservative Syndicate. Again, we want to thank you for taking the time to join us tonight. Archives of the show will be up in about an hour and a half. You can go to theconservativesyndicate.net and pick it up, listen to it, listen to parts of the show you missed tonight, download it, share it with people, whatever you want to do. That's what it's there for, theconservativesyndicate.net. We've got Joe Hakos, my co-host from Dryer Report, and Karen Siegemund in from Rage Against the Media, doing her weekly segment with us. And we were talking before the break about Mr. Rubio, Marco Rubio.
Yes, we were.
How he will very one thing I think he will do is he will in essence neutralize the race card to a great degree. We didn't really see that happen when we had Herman Cain running back in 2012. That didn't really happen. He was just painted as an Uncle Tom. What do you call a Hispanic that what's a Uncle Tom, a Hispanic version of Uncle Tom? Do we know what that is?
Wow, great question.
Because they'll dig it up. We'll probably find out in the next week or so.
Yeah. Stand by. I'm sure they'll come. I just remember what they did with George Zimmerman. He was a white Hispanic.
Right.
Yeah. So that's probably not quite hostile enough.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, they'll ostracize him in some way. But
yeah. Well,
why don't we do this? Why don't we listen to what he said before they ostracize him, and so we can have our audience kind of make up their mind.
Okay, go ahead. Play it out.
Here we go.
Because if we can capture the promise of this new century, they will be the freest and the most prosperous Americans that have ever lived. Yeah. But if we fail, they will be the first generation of Americans to inherit a country worse off than the one left for their parents. The final verdict on our generation will be written by Americans who have not yet been born. Let us make sure they record that we made the right choice. That in the early years of this century, faced with a rapidly changing and uncertain world, our generation rose to face the great challenges of our time. And because we did, there was still one place in the world where who you come from does not determine how far you go. Yes. Because we did, the American miracle lived on. Because we did, our children and theirs lived in a new American century. Thank you. God bless you.
God bless the United States. Thank you.
Okay. I got to be honest.
Young, you're old, right? That was.
Well, I gotta be honest with you. I was totally unimpressed. The guy does not impress me at all. I'm not a big fan of Marco Rubio. And my reason, it comes down to two words: Jeb Bush. This guy was mentored by Jeb Bush. To me, he's just another Jeb Bush. That's how I see him. That's how I've always seen him. I think it's noble and worthy that a man with his background has risen to the level that he has. It certainly validates the claim that anybody can become anything in this country. Of course, being a member of Congress today is not really something that a lot of people want to go around raving about. But I just don't. I can't help but in the back of my mind just grab onto this idea that really what we're seeing is a potential another Bush. I just
so you'd rather have the actual Bush?
No, obviously not.
That's what's at stake here.
Oh, I know. I understand that, and I'm not saying it would be necessarily detrimental to have somebody like Marco Rubio. You know what? Here's an issue. If I can let me kind of go off the path here, because what we have here, I don't want to get into bashing the guy because he's accomplished a lot more in his life, I think, in a lot of ways than I have in mine, given his age and everything. At least more focused. I'm personally a person that gets bored with stuff, and so I change. I just stop doing stuff. But in fact, radio is probably the longest thing I've ever been in. Because I just can't get over it. I love it. But
it's great. Yep.
The passion, John.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Yeah. But here's my point. We have now on the left or on the right, we have Senator Rand Paul, we have Senator Ted Cruz, and we have Senator Marco Rubio.
Mm-hmm.
Now, once they've entered the race. Now, what does that do? Should one of them get elected? What does that do to that seat that they're sitting in the Senate? It vacates that seat. And here we are.
Rubio is not running for Senate this time. The seat was going to be, he was either going to run for president or he's going to run for Senate, one or the other.
Okay, and here's the point, and this is the point I'm getting at, is that when a senator or a congressman runs for office, it puts in jeopardy the seat that they hold. And to me, in some ways, that's counterproductive. And I was thinking about this.
It would be in California.
Huh?
It would be in California.
Well, out here, what difference does it make?
Gee, John.
Okay, I mean, we're talking here right now. I think the who the leading in the polls out here in California for Senate is Condoleezza Rice, and she won't run.
She won't run. Well, she's leading for Republicans.
Yeah.
Really...
This girl wants to head up the NFL. She wants to be the NFL commissioner. She doesn't want anything to do with this.
And you can't blame her. Can't blame her.
I certainly wouldn't. But the point.
How much credit she got for being Secretary of State?
Well, I guess the point I'm just throwing this out there. Shouldn't there be some kind of requirement that if you're already sitting in office that you can't run for president or another office until such time as your term is up?
Well, that wouldn't then it wouldn't have mattered for JFK. It wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
Well, I'm just floating the idea here where we finally have a majority. Not that they're doing anything, but we have a majority, and now all of a sudden we got three of them at risk right now.
Well, we don't have three. Only one will make it.
Yeah, it's only going to come down to one.
Okay, but even if one makes it, you take a state like Florida, which is really right now very vulnerable to that going left.
Charlie Crist, really? The chameleon? I'm going to be whatever you want me to be, just pay me more money.
Yeah, the same thing with Rand Paul. If Rand Paul was to get elected, certainly the damage of Mitch McConnell's re-election would bring up the possibility that somebody like who did McConnell run against? Grimes or somebody like that? Was that who he ran against?
I think it was.
I think so. But
Okay, so now she runs for the Senate seat there, and we're right back to where we're split in the Senate. to where, we have a vice president that now makes the decision because you have an equal Senate split, that kind of thing. That's what I'm saying. I'm just floating